Hello everyone, my name is Greg and I dev stuff. Welcome everyone to episode 2 of Yakuza-like game in Unity. In this episode we will explore new Unity input system and how to make character actions. From now on, the very first thing you want to do is to clean your root folder. For me, the root folder represents the current working space. After I'm done implementing something new, I want to clean it up by moving everything into appropriate folders. This series is brought to you by generous support of people on Patreon. If you want to join them, link to my Patreon in the description. I'm not a professional 3D animator, and I can't make animations, but we can use Mixamo animation for the tutorial. Of course, we will be limited by what Mixamo offers us, but it will be more than enough for us to implement the basics of the game. So open Mixamo site, log in, and let's start downloading stuff. When you enter the animation page, you will see something like this. This is definitely not ours character. So first let's use ours character for animations. Click on the upload character button, then drag and drop your model out of the project. After it is done uploading and processing, it will look like this. Now I will pull few punches and kicks from the Mixamo and drop them into our asset folder. Let's test the animations. Let's change them in the animator and see what will happen. Okay, this is happening because all animations are not set appropriately. Make them of humanoid type. And now this is happening because we are not applying root motion. Apply root motion to the object. I will give an explanation on what root motion is later on. Good, as you can see, animations are working. Now we want to play them based on the player input. Attention, if your animation is moving the model, it can cause issues with root motion being on. We will discuss this in a later episode when we will look into the rolling and dodging animation. The input system package implements a system to use any kind of input device to control your Unity content. It is intended to be a more powerful, flexible, and configurable replacement for Unity Classic Input Manager. So let's migrate to this new input system. Open the package manager and in the Unity registry find the input system. Install it into the Unity. It will request to reload the Unity editor. The change will break the input we did in the previous episode. So if I try to launch the game, camera will not move and the character will not move either. Create new input action in the project. Select it and click on Generate C# class. Click Apply. This will create class in the project. Now double click on the player control scheme object in the project. This will open the window where we will be able to set up our control scheme. Rename action map to player movement. And action to just movement. Action type will be pass-through and control type is vector 2. Action type defines how your action operates. Example which we will use right now is pass-through type. The action has no specific type of behavior and instead acts as a simple pass-through for any value change on any bound control scheme. This means it will report its value change as processed in any possible state. Think about your stick on the controller. This action will be observing its state and returning its position. Control type represents data which will be returned from this action. In case of the stick, it will be a vector 2 because we have x and y position for the stick. Create new binding by pressing this plus button. Select 2D vector composite. Call it keyboard. Select analog mode. And now for up, set W on a keyboard, S for down, A for left, and D for right. Pay close attention to what you set. Make sure that it is from keyboard. 2D vector composite will make vector 2 based on the buttons pressed. So if you hold forward and left, your character will move forward and to the left combined, making him move at 45-degree angle. Then add binding. Assign the left stick from gamepad as binding. And add processor stick dead zone. Now let's create controls for the camera. Add a new action called camera. Set it to be pass-through action type and control type vector 2. Add two bindings, one for delta mouse, which will allocate the control of the camera to the mouse, and right stick for the controller. Open player input script. Here we need to define the variable for our player control scheme. And let's add camera input vector 2. Because we are going to use player control scheme, let's delete deprecated implementation from update. On enable, check does our input is null. Then initiate a new player control scheme. And outside of if statement, call enable on the input to set it active. Now we want to link our variable to the actions we defined in our control scheme. So the first action we defined was movement. Assign move input to this action. Actually, we don't need camera input, so let's remove it. We will use a different approach for this later on. This will make it so input vector from the keyboard controller will be written into the move input variable. And on disable we should disable the input. And now if we launch the game, character will start moving around. Good. But the camera is still unresponsive. Adding camera controls will be much more easier. Simply select CM3Look and then add a new component called Cinemachine Input Provider. Add reference to the player movement camera to the XY axis variable. Launch the game. Good. Good, it is punching time. Open the player control scheme. Let's create a new action map called Actions. Inside, let's define new actions called Light Attack, Heavy Attack, Block, Grab, Taunt, and Roll. All of them will be of type button. Set the binding on the keyboard and mouse. Then add binding for gamepad. Open the player animator. We already have all animations in the animator. Let's create a bool parameter called Light Attack and bool parameter called Heavy Attack. Set up the transition to the punch 1 using light attack and kick 1 using heavy attack. Remove exit time, that will make it so the transition and play of the animation will be done the moment the condition is met, because the animation will not wait until the end of the current animation. we will need to store reference to the character animator to animate our character. Now we need to read the state of our button, whether it's pressed or not. Open player input, create two new public bool variables, light attack and heavy attack. Hide them in the inspector. So when the action button is pressed, we want to set the bool to true. Started event fires up every time a button is pressed. Then on a late update set them to false to nullify their state. Go back to the action manager and directly pass those two values to the animator in the update. So when the player presses the button, the bool is set to true. It is used by the action manager to pass to the animator. Animator will animate the character, and inside the player input, bool will be set to false at the end of the frame. This way we detect and use a press of a button. In the character animator, we will check if the light attack is true, and in case it is, we set the state to true. Same for heavy attacks. If we launch the game now, if I press the left mouse button, it will cause the character to get stuck in the animation loop. It is because the light attack will take the state of true once and never change back. So let's select punch 1 and kick 1 and add a new behavior script called setState. Inside, declare public string variable called stateName and public bool variable. On enter, set the state using the stateName to the specific state. So when the animator will play this animation, for example punch 1, we want to set light attack back to the false state. And if we play kick, we want to set the heavy attack back to false. Good, this is it for this episode. If you have any questions or any ideas about code, please leave your comment below. If you are interested in seeing what will come out of this, please subscribe. If you want to support further, you can find my Patreon in the description. Special thank you to Cameron Smith for his generous support. With best regards, see you in the next episode.